Well, I think we're ready to get started for the deep dive this morning. So welcome to everybody that is joining us. We start the Monday every week off this way with the deep dive. So grateful for everybody that joins and has done so for the last couple of years that we've done the deep dive. So welcome. If you saw my video update, we're going to talk about a couple of things this morning, and I've got an exciting announcement for you too at the end of a new development, new product that we're working on here at KCM. But talking about rising interest rates. And then how do you give, really expert advice in this market? I talked to a lot of people this weekend that struggling with what's happening in the market, what's going on, what are we seeing? I'm going to break all that down for you this morning. One thing I will mention, next Monday is Memorial Day. We will not be on the deep dive. So we'll take a hiatus there, be back the following Monday. But just as a note, we will not be doing the deep dive next Monday morning. So I'm going to share my slides and sort of kick it off here because there are a lot of opinions in the market right now. And I kind of captured a few of these. I'm going to wait until prices come down. Certainly something that people are saying as prices have risen over the last couple of years. Rising interest rates, what's happening right now? And that's driving a lot of the fear in the market, driving a lot of questions, driving a lot of people just to kind of scratch their head and say, how's this going to affect folks? Now isn't a good time to buy a home. Certainly surveys that come back from consumers, the good time to buy a home has fallen at an all-time low. We know that probably doesn't shock a lot of people that are on this call. And the last one we've talked about extensively here is this market going to crash? Now, I'm not going to cover that this morning, but if you haven't seen us do that or do it on the deep dive, go back a few weeks, you'll see a complete explanation of this market and where we see things going, and certainly don't see a crash in that. Let me be clear, but a lot of opinions. We did a webinar last week or the week before talking about the difference between a fact and an opinion in this market. You have to have it to be able to deliver expert advice today. So, certainly having these facts at your fingertips are going to be key over the next several months as we go through a little bit of choppy time in our business. A lot of people asking questions about that. So if you haven't seen the crash piece, go back and look at that at a prior deep dive. But no doubt, all of this is being driven right now by a lot of things. But one of the big pieces is mortgage rates that have literally skyrocketed since the beginning of the year. We wrapped up the end of the year average 30-year fix. Maybe you've heard me say it several times, 3.1% on December 30th, where we sit today. The most recent monitor from Freddie Mac, 5.25% in the average 30-year fix. Now, a lot of that, literally the cost impact for many borrowers, is substantial and causing, sort of this pause a lot of people may be having in the market and seeing that frenzy start to die down. So I want to give you a little perspective on that. I want to give you expert advice on what economists are saying about this right now. So let's go to the weekly mortgage monitor from Freddie Mac. Comes out every Thursday. Sam Cater is the chief economist. This past week, he said economic uncertainty is causing mortgage rate volatility. Okay, uncertainty in the stock market, uncertainty with inflation, certainly geopolitical uncertainty. All this uncertainty causing rate volatility. As a result, purchase demand is waning and home builder sentiment has dropped to the lowest level in nearly 2 years. Builders are also dealing with rising costs, meaning this posture is likely to continue. So builders are concerned, starting to see, this happen out in the market. The week before, I copied this in because I think this is important for us to look at. In the months ahead, we expect monetary policy and inflation to discourage many consumers, weakening purchase demand and decelerating home price growth. Now, before you look at that and go, gosh, I'm concerned about that. And I'm saying this is the reality of what Sam Cater is saying about what interest rates are doing to the market. What are they saying there? The purchase frenzy is starting to weaken, meaning, we're not seeing as aggressive offers and multiple offers, certainly seeing that, but less than what we saw certainly towards the end of last year. and decelerating home price growth, meaning homes aren't going to appreciate as fast as they have. And what are the two things that we've wished for over the last couple of years? There wasn't such a frenzy for buyers, and that homes wouldn't appreciate at the rate that they would. So we're sort of seeing that happen out in front of us, and many people, many agents causing them to sort of be alarmed by that and go, okay, what is going to happen in the market? The other piece that I want to pause here for just a minute and tell you, I see a lot of this happening across the country, a lot of calls that I get. And if I were to give you some coaching, it would be this right now. As you talk about interest rates, as you talk about what's happening with builders, as you talk about what's happening with purchase demand, where you're at, or prices, is don't let perfect advice get in the way of expert advice. Let me say that again. Don't let perfect advice get in the way of expert advice. All across the country, folks are wondering what's going to happen, what's out there. Our job is to bring expert advice, and people are getting tripped up over perfect advice. What if I say something and something different happens? Well, nobody's able to give you perfect advice in this market. I have the picture up here of a physician. Think about that. You go to the doctor, you have something wrong with you, and what they're going to say is, here's what we see, here's what we're going to prescribe, and then we're going to go out and we're going to apply that prescription, right? It may be medicine, it may be whatever it is. Then you're going to come back in 30 or 45 days, and they're going to say, here's what we see, and that may be different. Here's what we prescribe, and then you're going to go about your date. Same thing with an attorney. An attorney cannot give you perfect advice. They can say, hey, based on what you're going through, here's what we're going to, to do to sort of fight the case. And then if we come back, we're going to do something different now. But our job, what you go to an attorney, what you go to a doctor for, is their expert opinion and their expert advice. And that's what many people are looking at us for right now is, what is your expert opinion on this market? Now, I'm giving you everything that folks are saying about interest rates. I'm going to give you a few more slides here, because we always want to give you everything you need to be the expert in the market for the clients you serve. And don't miss that right now. This is a big, big piece, because a lot of people are sort of focused on, well, what's going to happen with interest rates in 6 months? Nobody has a crystal ball. Even the folks that follow it, that are the most knowledgeable people that we watch, they're struggling with, okay, what's that going to look like? But let's go back to, we can provide expert advice. And here's what I would be saying if I was talking to somebody about interest rates right now. Mortgage rates are likely to continue to move higher throughout the balance of 2022, although the pace of rate increases is likely to moderate. If you've been to the deep dive before, you've heard me review this slide maybe a week or two ago. But this is the perspective from Lynn Kiefer, who's the chief economist at Freddie Mac. Goes on to say much of the increases in early 2022 are in anticipation of what will happen later this year, especially with the Federal Reserve interest rate policy. Remember that point that inflation is the enemy of long-term interest rates. So as the Fed works to lower inflation, we're going to see high interest rates until that, as they start to get inflation under control, then we'll start to look at that and say, okay, what does that mean for interest rates? I'm going to go back to another point about interest rates, because I believe a lot of this is driving the market right now, and sort of the frenzy and the questions in the market. It's this. If you remember this, for the past 50 years, the 10-year Treasury rate has moved in unison with the 30-year fixed mortgage rate. So if you want to know what's going to happen with the 30-year fixed mortgage rate, you need to look at the 10-year Treasury, not at what the Fed's saying, not at anything else. But you can start to look at that and maybe even go on CNBC and say, where's the 10-year Treasury yield at right now? And this is the past 50 years, right up until the beginning of 2021. Through 2021 up until 2022. But if we look at the beginning of the year, here's the look at the 30-year fixed mortgage rate as compared to the 10-year Treasury rate. So where we started in January, we've been on an upward climb, and certainly we've seen that in the 30-year fixed mortgage rate as well. Okay, so if you want to know where interest rates are going, keep your eye on the 10-year Treasury. Okay, not anything else, not what's happening out in the world. We're going to continue to watch that, continue to monitor the experts and everything that's happening there. One of the slides that I would be using if I was talking to somebody right now about perspective on mortgage rates is this slide right here. Okay, average current 30-year fixed, 5.25%. That is above where we've seen in the last decade, but below what we've seen in the decades prior. And I think sometimes in our business, we sort of say, listen, 5% interest rates are great interest rates because they were 1,000% back in the 70s. And so you should be happy and hope that people go, okay, well, that makes sense. I think we have to acknowledge right now that we're in an interest rate environment higher than what we've been in for the last 10 plus years. And many people, buying houses during that time, many of us maybe even in the business haven't seen interest rates this high. But the perspective is they're lower than where they've been every decade before that, right? I want to be the educator in that scenario with the clients that I serve. Great graphic to use in that. A little bit more perspective on rising interest rates and their impact on the market. Over 30% of transactions are taking place in cash. So there's a sizable contingent of buyers that are not interest rate sensitive. So interest rates driving a lot of the questions in the market, a lot of the sort of frenzy or lack of continuing frenzy. Expect that to continue, that it'll start to moderate the market. The word that I've always used is it's going to moderate the market. It's going to moderate appreciation out there. And we're certainly seeing that happen. One other graphic I want to give you before I make the announcement, I told you about a new tool that we're working on at KCM, is there's talk everywhere about, the economy slowing down. Certainly the Fed and their work is doing that, and talk about recession. One of the graphics that you always want to use when you think about recession is this one right here. It's a study that we did. A lot of people have seen this. Recession doesn't equal a housing crisis. What our team did is we went back and looked all the way back to the 80s, the past 6 recessions in this country. 4 of the 6, home prices actually appreciated. 2 times homes depreciated, once early in the early 90s by less than 2%. But what everybody remembers is 2008, when homes lost almost 20% value. Be using this graphic, whether you're posting it, you're making a video, you're doing things like that out into the market. This is a big piece. So a lot of questions out there about rising interest rates. This question of recession, starting to come up, and you're hearing talk of that. It's going to happen, or it's going to happen in the future. Certainly, we don't know timing of that, if, when, what that is, but we can confidently say and prove that does not mean a housing crisis. But every time somebody hears it, they hear housing crisis. So I'm gonna bring up a slide before I turn it over to Jess for any questions that we have, because I think there are going to be questions on this. But one thing I want to tell you about is we have a new product coming out at KCM, and it's all about video. There's no doubt that buyers and sellers want to work with folks with video. There's no doubt that social media platforms are, changing their algorithms to favor video, and getting our voice out on video is one of the most important things we can do to get the message out in the market. So what we've developed at KCM is a tool that allows you to do that. So think about this. If you saw it, we released the KCM app a couple weeks ago. And if you haven't downloaded that, you can go in the App Store and Google and Apple and download that. But think about a tool. We can hold your phone up. It gives you the words to say, just like we're saying on, let's go back to like a slide like this. This will be in there. Recession does not equal housing crisis. So you have the words to say. You're going to walk through that video. It's going to put the graphic in there. You hit done, and you've got a video ready to share on social media. Our team has worked extremely hard to pull this together. So expect to hear more in the coming weeks. If you're a KCM member, you're going to hear about that first. If you're not a KCM member, go ahead and start a free trial so you can hear about it. But no doubt you're going to hear about that. So keep sort of an eye out, keep a lookout for that coming up in the next few weeks. I'm going to pause for a second. Jess, turn it over to you and ask if we have questions this morning.
Hi, Dave. I actually only saw one question come through from Trisha so far, who asked if you could define what a housing crisis is.
So I would say the clearest definition of a housing crisis is 2008, when homes lost almost 20% value. Okay. So when people hear the word recession, they think about 2008 and they think housing crisis. Why? Because a lot of people were hurt back then. Maybe they were personally, maybe a family member, a loved one was hurt back then. But no doubt, I think that would be the most common thought that many people have about a housing crisis is 2008. And we have to remember, although things are very, very different, and I've talked about this on past deep dives in the real estate market, people think that when they hear the word recession. They think, okay, here we go again, and we're going to go down that same road. Any other? Is that the only one, Jess?
I just saw another question come through from Rosa, who asked, why is real estate the best place to invest for cash buyers?
Well, that's a great question, Rose. I would say why real estate's the best place for cash buyers right now is in an inflationary economy. You want to be invested, one, in hard assets, and two, hard assets that outperform inflation. You can go back and search on KCM. We have a great graphic for this going all the way back to the 70s to show how real estate has outperformed inflation every decade on average. There are a couple of times where there was, sort of neck and neck inflation, but you want to be invested in a hard asset, and real estate is one of the best for that in an inflationary time.
All right, awesome. Seeing some other questions come through now about the market. Let's see. Corinne asked, questions coming in through fast. Corinne asked, do we think that interest rates will ever go back to 8 to 12%? Well,
I mean, that's certainly a question that many would ponder or wonder. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't say that. I think with the Fed's involvement, it'd be tough to see that right now. Would be my quickest answer, but nobody has a crystal ball to be able to answer that.
Great. And Pat just asked, do you think that increasing rates are demotivating sellers to list their home?
Say that again.
Pat asked, do you think that increasing rates are demotivating sellers to list their home?
I don't know that increasing rates are demotivating sellers. I would refer to the folks that are on the call to answer that question. They can probably answer it better than I. We're seeing more people list their homes today. In April, we saw more homes listed than we saw this time last year, just by a little bit, but we're seeing more listings come back into the market. But I'm not sensing that. You'd have to ask people on this call to get a better answer for that.
Awesome. And I did see a question come through related to the announcement that you just made from Adit. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, who asked, does the video come with our current membership?
That will be a premium membership that will be announced that you'll get. If you're a KCM member, be on the lookout for that in the coming weeks. A couple of things. I'm just trying to go back through some of the questions too. I'll end on this one. Somebody asked, or Mike asked, are we officially in a recession? So, recession commonly is defined by 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP. You're never going to know that until the rearview mirror. So we're going to have to wait to hear what that announcement is. But certainly recession means slowing economy, not housing crisis. That's the word that I would get out there with my clients. But no doubt our job is to bring our expert market advice in this market. We're developing this video tool for you to do that. So if you're not a KCM member, start a free trial. You'll hear about that sooner than everybody else. We want you to try that out as that comes up. So I'm going to wrap up the deep dive. Remember, we won't be on next Monday. It'll be Memorial Day and that holiday. So we'll be back in 2 weeks for the deep dive, and grateful for everybody that joins all across the country each Monday morning. So have a great week. We'll see you in a couple weeks.